Hi class. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can create an object from the class we created in our previous video. So we have already created the class named rectangle, within which we have like data fields, we have recon constructors, we have methods. So next, I'm going to show you how we can create objects from this class. Okay, so this time I'm going to create a new class within the same package. So to do so, I just select this package and right click on it and new class. I'm going to name this class as test rectangle. Okay, so I want to have like the main method in it. Okay, so some of you might feel like curious. So why this method like main? We have like public and static, those words before its header or in its header. Okay, so just be patient. I'm going to explain like the differences between a static method and a normal method without using the keyword static. So I think I mentioned early on, main method is like the starting point of Java program. So the Java system will just look for like the main method to start executing the program. So like in this class, we have a static main, and within which, let's say, we can create objects using the class we have created, like the rectangle class. Okay, so first of all, let's create, do you guys still remember how to create an object from a given class? We have already done so, actually. So if you still remember, like for input, a scanner, we need to create a scanner object. So we use the keyword new and also call the constructor. Here we have two constructors we can call to create a rectangle object. So let's first create a rectangle object by calling the default constructor. By default constructor, I mean actually this constructor that takes no parameters. So here this is the syntax to create an object. First of all, you need to declare a variable of a class. Okay, so like rectangle, let's name it rect. Okay, so like here, this is just a very a general variable declaration statement. So you specify the type and you give it a name. Okay, so in our previous examples, we have already declared different types of variables, right? So like here, like int a. So like here, int is the type. Similarly, when we declare like a variable to hold or to point to an object, we have to specify the type of it. I think I mentioned that every class you define can be used as a type. Okay, from that type, you can create a variable. Okay, like here, rectangle is a class we created, and we can use this class rectangle as a type. So like to declare the variable rect, we specify its type as rectangle. So what's the difference between like a and rect? So you can see here A is a variable of type int. Here int, it is a primitive type. Okay, do you guys remember the list of primitive types in Java? Like for int, like short, long. For floating point numbers, we have float, we have double. For character, we have char. Those are, and for Boolean variable, we have Boolean, right? So those are primitive types. So you're a primitive type. It uses like a small amount of memory to hold a single value. Like here for the int a, when you assign like 10 to it, it just allocates, system will just allocate like 4 bytes, 32 bits, okay, to store this variable, to store the value of the variable a. But here, when we declare a variable of a class, okay, so it is something called a reference variable. It's called a reference variable. This is a primitive type of variable, and if the type is a class, it is called a reference variable. A reference variable can be used to reference an object. Like here, if like we declare a reference variable rect, and then we create like a rect object using the keyword new, followed by calling the constructor. Okay, the constructor for rectangle has the same name as the class, and since this time we're gonna call the default constructor is checks no parameter. Like this is the complete statement for like creating a rectangle object, and then assign, listen up, assign its memory address to this reference variable. Okay, in other words, the reference variable actually holds the address of the memory location where an object is located. In one of our previous videos, I explained the 2 types of memory in the system. So stack, that's a method called stack, and heap. Okay, at that moment, I asked you guys to remember a statement. So all Java objects are stored on heap. Okay, memory from heap will be allocated to store Java objects. Like in this case, we use the keyword new to create a rectangle object. So this object will be stored on the heap, and the assignment statement will just assign the address, okay, the address to the memory location where the object is located to this reference variable. So which means the reference variable always stores like the address of the object. It's not the object itself. Okay, so now we declare like this reference variable within class main. So the reference variable, it's a local variable. It is stored same as a. It is stored on the stack. Okay, in the activation record on the stack. But for that variable, it only stores the address. The address can be used to reference an object which is stored on the heap. Okay, so now you understand how to create an object and how to declare a reference variable to point to that object. Now let's see what we can do using this object. So by the way, from this point on, this reference variable rect will be used to represent this object. We can use this variable to manipulate this object. Okay, let's see what we can do with it. So the first thing we can do is to call the method, something like this. we can do system.out line. We can get the area. Okay, we call the area, we call get area on this object. So as I mentioned, starting from this point on, you can use this reference variable to represent the object. Okay, even though the object is on heap, but since you have already assigned its address to this reference variable, from this point on, you can use this reference variable to represent that object. So to call a method on this object, we can use rect dot get area. So basically, it just tells the system to call the method we have created in class rectangle, okay, to return the area of the current rect. Okay, take a guess. What would be the result? What would be the area? So if you take a look at the implementation of the method get area, it returns like the multiplication of width and height. So what are the values for width and height? Okay, so here, like rectangle, we call its default constructor to like, okay, there's another word, a verb called instantiation class, which means to create an instance of a class. Okay, instantiation can be used to describe like the creation of an object using from a class. So we call the default constructor to instantiate the object here. So you can see within the default constructor, we initialize both width and height to 0. So when this method is called on the object, it simply returns 0 times 0. So you'll get 0 like when calling this method. Okay, so like to run it, you see the area of rect is 0.0. It is tab double. Okay, so that's how we can call a method on an object. So the syntax is like the reference variable that points to the object dot get area. So the followed by the method name. Okay, so since it is a method call, you don't forget to put the parentheses. So let's see what else we can do. So for now, the width and height of this rectangle is just a 0, right? Since we are calling the default constructor, we can actually change the width or height by calling set width or set height. Okay, so let's first change set width. So one trick is you enter dot. It will show all the members of the class rectangle. So we're gonna call set width. Let's give it a new width like 10. Similarly, we can do set height like 20. Okay, so let's now those two methods are called to set like a new width and a new height. So like here in set width, you can see we pass a new width and assign it to okay, you may feel confused if you see this, but I'll explain this later. Okay, so you assign new width to width, which by the way is the variable, the data fields. Okay, so by the way, the data fields, we also have another term for just instance variables. So since like the values of those data fields depend on different instances. So in other words, different instances may have different values for those data fields. they are also named as instance variables. Okay, so here we pass a new width to update the width of the rectangle 10, and we pass a new height 20 to the rectangle. So after those two statements, oh no, I just clicked on. Okay, after those two statements, like width and height got updated to new values. Let's try to print out the area again. Okay, so after we have already changed their values. Okay, now you can see its area has been updated to 200. Okay, so based on its current, the latest, the current width and height. Okay, so actually, as mentioned, from the same class, we can create as many objects as we need. So, like, we can create another object of type rectangle. So we can do rectangle. I just name it rect1. Okay, so this time I'm going to call like the second version of the constructor. Like here, this time, this version, it takes two parameters. Okay, so basically it allows us to specify a value for width and height when we try to create one. So like here, we just call this version by passing two values. Let's see, 20, 40. Okay, so you can see here, we call the second constructor to instantiate an object, a rectangle object, by specifying its width and height. Okay, so like for this object, we call the default constructor. We didn't pass like the width and height, but we just changed their width and its width and height. But if we are calling like the second version of the constructor, we can directly specify like its width and height when we try to create one. So that's the reason why when we are working on like designing our own class, we offer multiple versions of constructors. So I just give like the user of the code more flexibility, so they can choose whichever version that best like satisfy their need. Okay, so like in this case, we call the second version of constructor. Okay, then we can do the same thing by we can call get area like on this new object rect1. We can even like we can even like call its let's see, let's get perimeter. Yes, call, yeah, we can call get perimeter to return its perimeter. Okay, let's go run it. Now you can see the area of rect1 is 800 and the perimeter rect1 is 120. Okay, so to sum up, in this video we have learned how to create like how to create objects from the class, from a given class. So by calling like different versions of constructors, we have already learned. We also learned like how to call a method on an object. You know what? So the whole thing can be merge into a rectangle. So in other words, you can choose to create like a static main in rectangle for the purpose of a demonstration, like in this case. And you don't like, you can even delete this one. It will just give you like the same result. Okay, you can see it will just give us the same thing. Okay, so I think we can stop here for this video. We're gonna see more features like in Java object-oriented programming in next several videos. Okay, bye.